Good morning, everyone, and welcome to iGate Radio, iGate Television, newspaper headlines. Today is October 1st, and indeed, a remarkable day, Nigeria's independence. I will say happy independence to you all out there. And 64 is not just a small age. So happy 64th independence to all Nigerians, and welcome you again to this program. Today we're going to again look at what the papers are saying, but of course your guess is as good as mine because today is independence. So the talk in the paper today, it's just about independence all through, from page 1 to the end, and from one paper to the next. It's about independence. The promise is what Nigeria has achieved in the last 64 years. So join us as we move on, but I have joining me on this program to give more facts or more bite into the program. It's Barrister Amatimin Timothy. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Smart.
And I have again the head of news and current affairs, iGate Radio and TV, Nathaniel Nogo. Nathaniel Nogo, welcome.
Thank you very much, Musaf. Happy Independence Day to you and all Nigerians out there.
Yeah, I think 64. I am 64 today. I can say I'm 64, but not my real age. Yeah.
Yes, it's the mood of independence.
Happy independence to both of you. And but before we go into the papers, when we say that marking 64 years, let me start with you, Barrister Amatimin. Marking 64 years. In one sentence or in two, a couple of them, what comes to your mind when you sat and you reflected on the 64 years independence?
All right. I see a great nation. I see a nation with very huge potentials. I see a country that has survived very turbulent moment. You recall that shortly after our independence in 1960, some few years after, we went through a civil war, and Nigeria, it was a very challenging moment for us as a people. However, we surmounted that, and today we are together, a united nation. It has been a challenge with building our democratic institution, coupled with the military takeover we experienced after independence in 1960. So it's very challenging for us as a nation, but there are good sides to narrative that we need, notwithstanding some of the going forward, the challenges we have experienced as a nation, and then chart the way forward in terms of solution.
Okay, Nat, I bring that, I throw the question back to you, and you tell us, 64. Huge growth at in a human growth. When we say that 64, I think by now as a teacher or a civil servant you should be going out of the service or you should be retired completely. Yeah. So your reflection on the 64th independence of Nigeria.
Well, it's indeed a remarkable experience that Nigeria has remained intact this past 64 years. In its journey as a sovereign nation, despite the trials and challenges the country has gone through, from military interventions and all manner of challenges we have had with our economy, politics of the nation, leadership issues, economic issues, security threats are there. But one strong aspect of it has been that it has long been predicted that Nigeria could disintegrate, even though the predictions have been made over and over a number of elections. For instance, if you look at in our recent democratic experience, it was predicted that 2011 could have made or marred Nigeria. It was touted as an election that could lead to the disintegration of Nigeria. But here we are, amidst all the trials and challenges, we have remained intact as one indivisible nation. Even though most Nigerians seem not to advance national interest, we tend to look at issues from perspectives of sectional and regional interest. But the interesting aspect is that the bond of our nationhood has remained. The trials are there, the challenges are there, from leadership issues, the followership issues we also have. In the economy, we are struggling security-wise. The challenges are there, quite enormous. But the interesting aspect is that we have no other country to call our own than Nigeria. So at 64, of course, successes may have been there and the challenges are a bit more overwhelming, but we look forward that in the journey ahead, the nation should continue to forge on. So 64 down the line is a blend of twists and turns, I must say.
Okay, so maybe I wanted to see whether I could throw a challenge to all of both of you and say, now that we're 64, can we comfortably sing the new national anthem?
Maybe we can attempt that.
It's okay, but for those who missed the president's broadcasts, we'll value a bite of it before we go into looking at some of the highlights of his discussion. So we take the broadcasts of the president, maybe a few minutes before we come back to look at some of the highlights.
Fellow Nigerians, as I address you today, I am deeply aware of the struggles many of you face in these challenging times. Our administration knows that many of you struggle with rising costs and the search for meaningful employment. I want to assure you that your voices are heard. As your president, I assure you that we are committed to finding sustainable solutions to alleviate the suffering of our citizens. Once again, I plead for your patience as the reforms we are implementing show positive signs, and we are beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Exactly 64 years ago, our founding fathers chose democracy as a form of government and launched the dream of a great country that will lead the rest of Africa out of poverty, ignorance, and underdevelopment. A beacon of hope for the rest of Africa and the world. Over 6 decades later, we can look back and Nigerians worldwide can see how well we have succeeded in realizing the lofty dream of our founding fathers. The world is witnessing and benefiting from the can-do spirit of Nigerian people, our massive intellectual capacity, and our enterprise and industry in all vocations, from art to science, technology to infrastructure. The dreams that our founding fathers envisaged are still work in progress. Every day, we put our hands on the plow, stepping to focus on what has been left undone and where we have stumbled as a nation. We must never lose sight of how far we have come in forging and holding our country together. Since independence, our nation has survived many crises and upheavals that led to the dissolution and disintegration of many other nations worldwide. 6 years after independence, our country descended into a political crisis that led to a bitter and unavoidable civil war. Since returning from the brink of that darkest moment, we have learned to embrace our diversity and manage our differences better as we continue to work towards engendering a more perfect union. Despite the many challenges that buffeted our country, we remain a strong, united, and viable sovereign nation. Dear compatriots, our independence anniversary gave us another chance to reflect on how far we have gone in our journey to nation building and to renew our commitment to building a better nation that will serve present and future generations of Nigerians. While we celebrate the progress we have made as people in the last 64 years, we must also recognize some of our missed opportunities and mistakes of the past if we are to become one of the greatest nations on earth, as God has destined us to be. Our mistake must not be followed. 18 months ago, at a critical juncture, the economy faced many headwinds and our physical security highly impaired. We found ourselves at a distant crossroad where we must choose between two paths.
Okay, that's the president's speech you just listened to there, and President Bola Tinubu giving us a speech. Gentlemen, you've listened to him. You've listened to the president. Many things he has said. Before we go into it, I will just again get your own reactions to what he has said. Yeah, of course, he said, he has made this comment many times, be patient. And he also said the reforms are yielding positive signs. And again, he said, let us not repeat the mistakes that we committed in the past in the future. So, Nogo.
Well, when the president did make that broadcast this morning, I listened to it keenly. I wasn't really inspired because he didn't raise hopes of Nigerians. He didn't, my own hope in particular, he didn't raise it. I expected him to speak to some issues, especially the approach he's taking to address some of these challenges. He mentioned cost of living, which indeed is something we are grappling with recently. But he wasn't categorical in any of the approach his administration is taking to resolve the rising cost of living, to address the rising cost of living, tackle it headlong. The president also mentioned about security challenges that have bedeviled the nation. Of course, he was also categorical in stating that we shouldn't repeat the mistakes of the past. But here we have a crop of leadership that seem not to be learning from the lessons of our past history may have afforded us, because the same mistakes, the same teething issues, we still see them manifesting. Because in every sincerity, the way we are approaching our security issues now, if we are not careful, we are heading to another doomsday that this country may be plunged into needless anarchy. For instance, today, the youths are on the street for another round of protest. We witnessed what happened recently, I think in the month of September or August, thereabout.
September,
September, right.
think so.
the End Bad Governance protest. Rather than address the concerns and yearnings of Nigerians, here we have an administration that took interest in arresting the protesters and charging them for all manner of charges, which some feel is really unacceptable. So in a country where the civil rule is in place, but the citizens do not have the right to protest when they feel dissatisfied, there should be some form of dissension allowed by the government. Because, of course, if the challenges are there, dissenting opinions and views should be tolerated. And they should be tolerated to the extent of addressing the concerns that citizens are raising. So, as a matter of fact, the president, if he's telling us we should work towards a path of not repeating the mistakes of the past, the patience he has asked for again and again, of course, Nigerians have demonstrated enough patience. We have gotten to an elastic limit of our patience. The leaders should show that they're really concerned about what Nigerians are going through.
When he talks about repeating, let us not repeat the mistakes of the past in the future. And just like you mentioned, I said, let us not repeat the mistakes of governance in the past, in the future.
Yes.
So what's your own take, looking at what the president said?
I completely align with his position on that. One would have expected that instead of speaking in the future, the president should speak in the present and then connect with Nigerians, you know, because the times are very tough. And you are telling us there are hopes, you know, better days ahead of us.
The hope is renewed.
You know, yeah. Now one would have expected that the better days are here with us, right? So when you begin to rear out your economic reforms, how does that translate to affecting the living standard of an average Nigerians? You know, so whatever data you may show up or bring to the public, Nigerians may not connect with it because they are paying hugely for fuel. In fact, the queues have returned to our filling station. You know, the black marketers are making more profit, in fact, they have fuel more than the filling stations. You know, so the cost of transportation has increased. And then how about the cost of, you know, feeding and all that? So by the time you put all this together, you know, just recently I went to pay the school fees of someone and, you know, contrary to what was released to parents during vacation, at the time of vacation, the school saw the need to increase because of the current, you know, price of things in the market and all that. So what is the government doing to better the worth of Nigeria? And, you know, totally I agree with him on the point of our leaders making sacrifice for the nation. Every given opportunity our leaders have, they invite the people to sacrifice for Nigeria. Are they really making that sacrifice for this nation? So if we begin to see our leaders lead by example, right? If we begin to see them make sacrifices for this country by, you know, reducing some of their huge allowances, you know, some of their bogus expenses, you know, some of these foreign travels that most times they embark upon just for jamboree sake, that does not translate to the living standard of Nigeria, or affecting the living standard of an average Nigerian on the street, then we'll begin to see that, yes, we are really working towards those better days. You know, even though they are not here yet, but we see that people are working towards that. So one would have expected, you know, for instance, the president begin to speak to issues. What have you done in the area of unemployment? You know, we have our young people leaving school without anything to do. You know, and then these are some of things that trigger some of the insecurity we have in the country. So we shouldn't be deceiving ourselves that things are well, right? So if our president is telling us that he feels the pains of an average Nigerians, he has appreciated, he has heard the cries of Nigerians, then we think that something urgently needs to be done. In fact, some persons had anticipated that there will be a cabinet, you know, shake-up in his speech. That was missing because of a truth, we have had some ministers who are not really alive to their responsibilities. We don't even get to hear some of them at all, whether they are not media friendly or whether they are afraid of engaging the people as to what they are doing to better drive the vision of the president in renewing the hope of Nigerians.
So you just mentioned a point here. So in all of these ministers, who are you thinking they should go?
In fact, if we begin to call names, I wish not to mention names, but if you can begin to see are we faring better off in terms of insecurity in this country? Now, we are very good with playing with words or semantics when we discuss issues. We moved away from terrorism to banditry, which for me, there seems to be no difference between what the bandits are doing with what the Boko Haram were doing. So, okay, we have, a kind of done away substantially or defeated Boko Haram, but we are having, much impact of the bandits around us. So we are still confronting the same issues.
Okay. All right. So now we go to the highlights of President's speech. As I said, that is what has been on the pages of all the newspaper. Majorly, that's what has taken the large chunk of the newspaper front pages of the newspaper. So let's take the first highlight of President Tinubu's speech, and that first one says economic reforms. He says that he acknowledges that there's much difficulties and rising cost of living and unemployment, and then he's urging Nigerians to be patient, assuring them the reforms are yielding. When he was reading his speech, I heard Nogo trying to imitate him, said voices are heard. So hard. So, but again, he said something that we are beginning to see light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know which of the tunnel he is talking about, but maybe Nigerians will not agree with him, just like you have said here. So, economic reforms generally, we have all mentioned. I think this is where the problem of Nigeria is hinged on, the economic reforms. The taxes, some say the taxes are much, some say talk about fuel and all of that. But from what the president has said, the assurances he's saying, and that hope that he has given Nigerians, it doesn't seem, you said, that's not translated to the feelings of the ordinary Nigerians. So there is a gap, isn't it? A huge gap. No.
Absolutely, there is a gap, because
not just speaking English.
When you talk about economic reforms, you acknowledge the pains of Nigerians, and economic reforms are yielding results. If they are yielding, we should see it manifesting. It's not saying it in abstract sense that they are yielding results. If economic reforms are yielding results, we should have a reduced cost of living that would be affordable for even the low-income earners, including those who don't earn income at all. If we have the economic yielding result, we should have reduced inflation, where, like somebody gave an analogy, you take a basket full of money to the market and buy items that you put in your pocket, as against nowadays when you could take pockets full of money and buy items full in the basket. It is no longer the same. If the economic reforms are yielding result, we should see a reduced level of unemployment, because as it is, with the rising cost of living and general hike of things, including cost of petrol, some companies, some private organizations, including even government establishments, have been forced to lay down some of their employees. So how is that adding to yielding result in the economic reforms?
70,000.
Only recently,
70,000
naira minimum wage with the federal government did announce it is yet to be implemented in most of the states. As of yesterday, it was in the papers that only about 17 governors of the country have so far constituted panels with regards to implementing the new national minimum wage. The federal government itself is still making it in promises that it will take effect from July 29, but it has not been implemented. How is that part of economic reforms yielding result? Only recently, the Central Bank of Nigeria did increase interest rate. How is that yielding results for economic reforms? We are still grappling with the challenge of petrol subsidy removal. The federal government did announce that it was going to suspend import duties on what's it called? Certain categories of food items. If our economic reforms are yielding results, we do not need to be importing food. The federal government also announced that it was going to cut down taxes for the non-informal and informal sector. Has that been implemented? How is that yielding results? So, Mr. President should be sincere to himself and to Nigerians. If the economic reforms are yielding results, we Nigerians should feel the impact. It is not just saying it for saying sake.
Economic reforms are yielding results. There is light we are beginning to see. But the president said we're not seeing light yet. He said there's glimpse. We're just seeing like flashes. There is a tunnel, so right? So the flash, Amatim, I don't know what you're just seeing flash. Oh, is that light? But no light. Okay, yeah. Maybe there'll be the full light to come later, but not now. But that's what the president is saying. So we're in the tunnel now, and there's flashes of a prosperity in the future.
All right, we really wish to even see the tunnel in the first place. You know,
no, but
for us to really know whether there is even light.
The hardship is the tunnel itself.
Or exactly. And of the truth, if you look at the exchange rate, the foreign exchange rate between naira and dollar, then you now begin to understand the narrative better. Before he took over, what was the exchange rate? The naira and dollar exchange rate, how was it when he took over last year? So if we begin to look at some of his conversation, the truth is that the purchasing power of an average Nigerian has been demarcated, has been reduced to the barest minimum. In fact, people are struggling to live. The cost of getting medicine or drugs in our country has skyrocketed. So how much are we paying for electricity today? So by the time you factor in all these, and then you have a president telling you that I feel your pains, I don't think the president feels the pains of an average Nigerian. If he feels the pains of an average Nigerian, he wouldn't at this time be prioritizing having the private jets or, acquiring some of the things or building houses for the vice president. We don't need all these things. That's why I have maintained this position. You see, you don't need, Nigerians don't even demand much from our leaders. We don't demand much. Those very basic things, right? Now, once we begin to see our leaders do the talk, lead by example, it's easier for us to connect with them. It's easier for us to connect with them. For some months now, we have been discussing about national minimum wage of 70,000. What are we doing about implementing that? And if you look at the whole narrative, at the moment, people are struggling. People are going through a lot. So Nigerians want to see the impact some of these reforms the president is reading out. Without we getting the impact, in fact, most times when we begin to discuss economics in this country, it's more of a paper thing. We don't only see the effect on that of the removal of fuel subsidy in this country without any plan in place on the part of government to cushion the effect of the removal. And until date, we are yet to have a comprehensive plan on the part of government on addressing some of the effect of the removal of fuel subsidy. Now, as we speak, Dangote launched his refinery and we are yet to know what is really happening there. We are yet to see the supply impact of what is refining in Nigeria, in our states or across the nation. So until we begin to feel the impact, there are a lot of reforms that we are even begging for. Now, it was rather very worrying for the president to even be thinking about giving people an award, at this very point in time when people are going through a lot. For God's sake, some of these titles for me are very uncalled for. Address some of the issues of corruption. In fact, just recently there was an allegation that the correctional authorities and the EFCC compromised went against the letters and spirits of our laws in the course of implementing their constitutional or statutory duties. And then at the moment, one would have expected the president to act or react to some of these things. And then people are still holding on to their offices, moving around, without any proper investigation done at the moment. Just yesterday, when the House of Rep had a hearing on the subject, one of the major or principal parties failed to show up. So come on, for God's sake, let's be serious in this country for once.
Yeah.
And as we become to be serious in this country, it is easier for us to begin to see the light.
Okay. So, I wanted us to talk about much of it, the very dark man later, but we'll come back. Let's go to the next point in the president's speech. where he said he has done quite very tremendously. And the second one is an interesting one again. Security achievements, he says 300 Boko Haram and bandits commanders have been eliminated. Our administration, I quote him here, administration is winning the war on terror and banditry. We have restored peace to hundreds of communities. Gentlemen, I think we can give this to the president. Compared to the outgoing administration, I think one would say maybe it's because it is not being reported, but I think he has done quite very well here. Although
the first fundamental responsibility of the government to its people is the security of lives and property. So, in fact, it shouldn't be about progress that has been recorded with a number of Boko Haram terrorists be surrendering or be conquered. We should have total peace in this country, and the president should show greater commitment. As you did mention, what we may applaud in that regard, that it has been tamed, but the banditry is still on the increase. Benue is not insulated from this. You and I know this. Gone are the days when you just travel freely on our roads, on our federal highways. Now, kidnappers are on the rampage. Banditry is on the increase. From north central to southwest to southeast to everywhere. In the southeast, you know what is happening there. You do not need to be told. Because the separatist agitators, IPOB, and all manner of groups that are still operating in that zone of our country. The insecurity has not been tamed yet, as the president will want us to believe. Because the last time I checked, one would have hoped that the changing of the security chiefs was going to address the issues holistically to bring to the bearers the challenges of insecurity we are grappling with in the country. But we're not there yet. So, well, he may give himself a pass mark. He may have scored himself that the country is dealing with that, but we expect greater commitment. We need total peace to be restored. In Benue here, you know what we face? Pockets of killings here and there, from Sankara to Agatu to virtually every part of our state.
okay,
So, the government of Mr. President should show greater commitment in addressing the security challenges. Let total peace be restored in the country, not just about Boko Haram. The issues of banditry that we face, unknown gunmen and the titles you call them, let them be completely eliminated so that Nigeria can thrive peacefully.
okay. Related to that, maybe you have to say something. But related to that, he said, which is the return of displaced persons. That's the third point of his speech. He said many Nigerians in conflict zones are returning to their homes. That's the third point of the speech.
Could the president be making that as a sincere statement coming from him?
And he's saying that thousands of our people have been able to return home. Our security agencies are committed to ending this as quickly as possible. Now let's go to, this is what the president is saying at the moment. And because he has just said that we have about 30 Boko Haram bandits and Boko Haram leaders have been killed and now returned. Many displaced persons are returned. Pastor Martimin,
All right.
do you agree with him?
I do not agree with the president that internally displaced people have returned to their homes. In fact, around us here in Benue, where I come from or where I reside, we still have our people living in IDP camps. In fact, most times some of them will struggle to return to their farms and most times are attacked. So we really need to be very sincere about some of these issues that affect us as a nation. And I believe that the people that are briefing the president may not be telling him the truth of what is on ground. And if there is that disconnect between the president and what is happening on ground, then we are in trouble because of the truth. We may not be experiencing attacks the way it used to be, but our people are still living in IDP camps. And the cost of maintaining these people is huge and alarming. So it is better and time now for the government to address some of these issues holistically, so that we get to address some of these issues without just playing politics around the whole issue of IDPs and all that. For God's sake, you are a Nigerian, and instead of living and enjoying your nation, you are living like a refugee in your own country. That shouldn't be so. And if the president talk about tackling the issue of Boko Haram, killing some of their commanders, or we need to get the names so that we begin to verify some of this information. A situation where we are told over 300 have been eliminated. Who are these persons? So that we begin to trace and then know that these informations are true. That's all about accountability. So our leaders should be accountable to the people, and they should speak truth instead of raining out things that may not really be the situation on ground. Because around us here in Sankra, we know what is happening. We know what is happening. People are even afraid. Even those of us who are in Benue. By the time, for instance, you invite me to attend a traditional marriage around that axis, I tell you, my brother, until you come back, I'll come and pay my homage.
You wish you save.
You know, exactly. And then for a very long time, the Southeast have been, every Mondays, people don't go to work. In fact, in the course of doing my master's program at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, you know, every Monday, if you have any lecture, there is no lecture. That's the truth about. So what is government doing about addressing some of these issues? So until we take control of our security away from the non-state actors, we are very far from getting things right. These guys go about, people are killed in our state capitals. People are assassinated, and no proper investigations are done, or results of such investigations are not made known to members of the public.
Okay.
And then at the end of the day, we wish them rest in peace, and then we'll move on.
Okay.
Come on, these are human beings. The life of every Nigerian matters.
Indeed. Let's quickly look at them because the time is quite running. Natural disaster, that is the next one. He said he has, in responding to that flooding, the president said he has created a disaster relief fund and integrity tests for dams. The federal government will always stand with our people in their times of trouble. The next one you have there is foreign investment. Said Nigeria has attracted over 30 billion in foreign direct investment within the past year, and that's thanks to the reforms. We said the reforms are not yielding, but we're saying thanks to the reforms, our country attracted foreign direct investments worth more than 30 billion. And just the next one there you have is agriculture and food security. He says that the importance of mechanized farming, and highlighted the establishment of the tractor assembly plant to boost food production and reduce costs. And I quote him, "We expect to see a leap in food production and a downward spiral in food costs." That doesn't look very, these three items I've mentioned, natural disaster response, foreign investment, and agricultural food security. Nongo, looking at this, just pick one that is more interesting for you. But for me, I'll go for first food.
Absolutely, that's where my interest lies. But I must start with Benue. I was a bit disappointed that the president acknowledged states that are making strides in agriculture, and Benue was not there. So it means the Benue state government really needs to sit up. Otherwise, it does appear we are losing our food basket status, because the president acknowledged Niger, he acknowledged KB, and some states, at least 6 of them, that he acknowledged, particularly for their mechanization drive in the agriculture sector. Because if the government needs to revive agriculture, of course, mechanization is key to it, because food is a basic necessity. Every human being survives on food, and the cost of food alone destabilizes the entire economy. As it is now, Nigerians barely have a healthy diet, because what you can afford to buy is really not what can the money you have will really give you a good meal for a family. So agriculture is an aspect that the government need to look into seriously. But again, it doesn't stop at just saying policies of agriculture and how it is worked. We should be seeing that done. And of course, like I mentioned, Benue I am a bit disappointed that it does appear we are losing our food basket status. And 1 year into the life of the current administration in the state, it should make some decisive moves to maintain our status as a food basket of the nation. So if the president is giving himself a pass mark for ensuring food security, but we are not food secure yet. The food insecurity is really there.
Are you doubting his distribution of palliatives?
But the palliatives are sustainable. I keep wondering, everything in Nigeria shouldn't stop with just distributing rice. Get the people, get the environment for the people to sustain their own livelihood through agricultural programs that will give them a sense of livelihood. Not about buying rice to distribute, because the palliatives oftentimes is just about rice. And if maybe if you go beyond rice, corn, what's it called again? Maybe some cartons of noodles. But how sustainable? When the bags of rice are distributed in a community, for instance, how many bags gets to a typical? For instance, in Benue, we have 276 council wards. And if you take a statistics, maybe at the random, in each of the 276 council wards, there should be at least minimum of 2,000 families. Will a bag get to each of the 2,000 families at the council ward level?
Have they distributed the palliatives?
And that's another question. So
I don't know. I'm not asking.
We shouldn't be, our agricultural drive or food security should not be an initiative of just palliatives coming in form of bags of rice or truck of relief materials, food and non-food items
subsidized
coming from the federal government.
You may have forgotten there was subsidized price. 40,000.
And which we never heard where we were going to buy the rice eventually. So we should be more decisive in addressing the food insecurity that is really confronting us.
I was actually thinking of something that this is the moment where Nigerians, a day like this should be where the president should gather Nigerians and let them interrogate them. Not only the president, the governors as well. Because this question we're asking, where was the palliative shared and the 40,000 reduction of rice and the rest sent by the federal government to state? We should ask the governors, Mr. Governor, we had so, was it done? Was it not done? And so on. But of course, the pageantry of independence would overshine all of this. The key things should be done. But let's move on. Energy transition, it's again another policy, another high point the president made there, that he confirmed that the expansion of compressed natural gas usage in mass transit to lower transportation costs. And our energy transition program is on course to provide cheaper public transportation. And the last one, but not the last anyway, second to the last, the third to the last rather, youth employment. Tinubu announced that the National Youth Conference and several youth-centered initiatives, including the 3 Million Technical Talents Program and the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, this conference will empower our young people to participate actively in nation building. The president is talking about, we're talking about employment, and he's talking about youth conference. It's okay. I don't know whether that will translate into gainful employment to the youth, but of course, Amatimin, maybe you have something to say.
Like the use of CNG, these were things that government ought to have done even before the rule of fuel subsidy, so that it would have cushioned the effect of the rising cost of transportation. Before, we used to transport ourselves from Makurdi to Boko at the rate of 1,000. Today, we are paying 2,000 or even more in some cases. So you now see a situation where some of these policies are coming too late in the day. However, we expect that government is more proactive in implementing some of these policies. And for me, I'm not really fascinated with the whole idea of youth conference, because we have had series of conferences in Nigeria, and reports have been tendered and they are gathering dust without any attempt at implementing them.
Looks like a jamboree.
Exactly. So it shouldn't be one of those usual conferences we have on people who are the political parties that most times are power intoxicated, who are not even educated, who may not really connect with the plight of an average Nigerian university graduate or situations like that. So we want a situation where government, it's easier and cheaper for you to even have town hall meetings with the people. Connect directly with the people. Do not send representatives to address the people. Connect the people. When you were seeking for elections, all the villages, even the hinterlands, were accessible. Now that you have won, it is time for you to begin to assess some of these areas and see how the people are living and surviving there. Are they really living with electricity in the villages? Do they have potable water in the villages? Are the roads even accessible for the people to move their crops and farm yields? So these are the issues Nigerians are begging the government to give attention to. And of a truth, we must problems and the plight and sufferings of Nigerians.
Okay.
We shouldn't just heap the blames on the federal government.
Yeah.
What are the state doing with the increased federal allocation? What are the local government doing with the management of the resources that are accruing to the local government? Until we begin to hold these people accountable and then begin to engage them on some of the priority projects they are implementing, whether for the people or for themselves, we are very far from getting it right.
Okay, of course, the other last one is fiscal responsibility. He said the administration has reduced Nigeria's debt service ratio and paid off significant inheritance. According to economists, said yes, he has reduced the debts in all of that. But before we go, because time is far running, there is something that I wanted us to look at. I have scanned through many governors' speeches. I've been looking for the speeches of many governors online, and that of Benue as well, to see how I can collaborate, how they synergize with the president's own, and see whether what he's saying is the same thing with what they are doing, because what the president may have achieved in food and agriculture and food security should be the same thing that will trickle down to the state, and security as well as. But I have not found any. Here in Benue, I've searched the Facebook handle of the chief press secretary and that of some of his aides, but I've not got any. I don't know what maybe they are waiting to president to address before they can now say, okay, let's make sure that we're speaking the same voice with the president. But I don't think we should. Part of it was to look at it, and looking at the president, we also look at what the governor has done in the particularly Benue State, to see whether his plans for the state he has actually reflected on all of that. But since we've not gotten it, it's okay. We hope that we will see, but I hope that in the time to come we can also x-ray on all of that. But let's go, because time is not on our side now. Let me just have your final thoughts on what you think the federal, the states, and local government should do as we march on to the 65th anniversary, which is ahead. And the president said, might remember, that we should not repeat the mistake of yesterday going into the future.
Not repeating the mistakes of the yesterday going into the future. One of the mistakes of yesterday that has continued to rear its ugly heads in our nation is insecurity. Insecurity, once you tackle that, then you are on your way to addressing the other problems. Give Nigerians maximum security of lives and property. Ensure that they sleep with their two eyes closed. They travel on the roads without a fear of being kidnapped or being hacked down by some elements who are out. Or even the farmers in the farming communities. Guarantee the security for them to go to their farms. You understand? To farm in a way, because part of what has contributed to the food insecurity we are facing is the displacement of farming communities. I am speaking as someone who is from Benue State. You know that most of the farming communities, thousands, millions of people are confined to the internally displaced persons camps as a result of this singular factor of insecurity. So once you address that, the other problems will be on the way to, because if security is not there, the economy itself will not survive. Education-wise, we will be losing it. Every other sector of the economy will be affected. So address the problem of insecurity, stabilize the economy, give Nigerians a sense of hope in a country that they will be truly proud of to call their own country, because as it is, at 64, indeed, we are Nigerians, but the sense of pride to beat our chest and truly say that we are independent is not there yet.
Okay, you can also see that we're almost there. So let me have your take regarding that at the moment.
All right. I advocate that we work on national core values. In fact, for a very long time, we have downplayed nationalism in this country. It has not been elevated to its rightful place. So, patriotic Nigerians must show patriotism in all our dispositions. And then we need our leaders to begin to show true leadership. By the time we have patriotic leaders and patriotic followers, we are working towards addressing issues of corruption. We're working towards addressing issues of ethnicity and tribalism. We're working towards addressing some of these major issues. And most importantly, we must build our democratic structures and systems.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Barrister Martin, a legal practitioner in Benue State. And thank you, Nathaniel Nongo, head of News, Agate Radio and TV. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming onto the program.
Thank you, Gosaf.
Again,
Happy Independence once
happy
again.
Independence, and wish that all that the president said he is doing or he has done will reflect in the lives of Nigerians. But one thing again, the president assured us is that there is some light coming into the coming out of the tunnel. So just be patient, and we believe that better days are ahead. Wish you a very wonderful wonderful celebration of the 64th independence of Nigeria, and see you next time. My name is Benjamin Gutsal. Bye-bye.